You made the decision back in February to change the focus of the mission. It was not going to be a moon landing. Instead, Artemis III is going to never leave Earth orbit. What is Artemis III's role as a stepping stone to an eventual moon landing?
Well, first, I want to make sure we're giving good credit to the NASA team, right? I mean, we are surrounded by the best and brightest here across all these centers. They knew at the time that going from Artemis II, which hadn't flown yet, and flying around the moon and waiting 3 years to then launch that very big, complicated rocket again to land on the moon was a bridge too far. So they had been doing the analysis for a long time. What we needed the mandate from President Trump. So the National Space Policy said, go back to the moon, do it before 28, build the moon base, do the other things, and then we needed the resources. And that $10 billion plus up that came from the Working Family Tax Cut Act, that gave us the resources and the mandate, not to mention all the planning that had been going on here at NASA, to do this mission the right way, which is fly around the moon on Artemis II, excellent mission, gathered lots of good data, launch again a year later, get into a rhythm, rebuild muscle memory around here, and then rendezvous the Orion spacecraft with both landers, because we need the contributions from both of them to complete this undertaking, but do so in Earth orbit where you're close to home. That's where you want to learn. That's why we did it that way in the 1960s with Apollo 9. And no doubt we will learn from there. There will be hardware changes and software updates and process and improvements and set up for the landing in 2028 with Artemis IV. So we made those decisions in February, but let's just say that we had all the right ingredients to do the right thing leading up to that moment.
Artemis III has been described as one of the most complex missions in maybe in NASA history, with multiple companies, multiple rockets, with any luck, a couple of different landers. What is it to you that makes it especially complex?
Well, I would say the fact that you are getting into a multi-launch campaign. I mean, that's kind of what's exciting here. When everyone tunes in for this mission to get underway, you are going to see the three most powerful rockets in the world come together to make this mission possible. And I think that's the right way to start thinking about what our future in space looks like. You know, during the 1960s, the Apollo era, we had to bring everything along for the ride on a single rocket launch, right? I mean, we had to create, at the time, the most powerful rocket in the world. It had to carry the astronauts, had to carry the lunar lander. Eventually, it had to carry the rover. In a world today where we have the healthiest launch industry in the history of America's space program, you don't need to combine everything in one shot, right? So we can send up our astronauts on SLS, we can send up landers with SpaceX, we can send up landers with Blue Origin. Heck, we got a half dozen other companies that are sending up landers to help us build the moon base. So it's kind of the right approach to do it. I think it'll be great for those that are watching. You're going to see, again, three most powerful rockets in the world come underway. But most importantly, the lander. That is everything. We're going to be able to test out both in Earth orbit and gain confidence for where we go next in 2028, which is back to the surface of the moon.
All space is hard. Is a mission that complex a little daunting?
Well, that's our specialty here at NASA. I mean, people say, well, that sounds very ambitious. Like, ambitious is what we do, but we bring it into reality. We do it in the right way. Again, you're applying the resources and the best and the minds of the best and brightest from across the nation to be able to approach a mission like that the right way and make sure that it's successful. Today was an important milestone on that journey where you put four absolutely incredible astronauts, three that have flown to space before, very experienced, and one who is backing up the Artemis II crew over the last couple of years. No doubt spent more time in the simulator and understands how Orion works than any of the others. I mean, again, you're pulling together all the right ingredients to ensure a successful outcome.
Both SpaceX and Blue Origin have had issues with their rockets. Their landers are still in development. Are you confident that the hardware will be ready in time for this planned mission next year?
Well, I am confident. I'm confident for a couple of reasons. First, when you see Blue Origin and SpaceX have their various setbacks, and that seems surprising, I would encourage folks to go on YouTube and start looking at some of the NASA-era rocket tests of the early 1960s, and they looked very similar. Okay, that is actually to fail fast and learn, to be hardware rich, be able to take the data and what you've learned and roll it into the next rocket. An iterative design approach is how you get to really challenging outcomes very, very quickly. And Blue Origin and SpaceX both subscribe to that. Now, we are not, as I've said many times, we are not going to sit on our hands and wait for them to figure it out, because we've been there before. We have done this in decades past. So we are embedding NASA subject matter expertise across the supply chain to help SpaceX, to help Blue Origin, to help Axiom with our spacesuits. We're going down to the subcontractor level. Amit Trishia, he was out, our associate administrator, was out on the road with Jeremy, who heads up our Artemis program, working through valve issues. This is what people should expect of NASA, to get out on the road, to drive outcomes, apply our expertise, and get us going in the right direction. We're doing that with our 2 lander providers. The setbacks should be expected in this environment, just like they were in the 1960s. It's all going to converge in the next year for Artemis III. We're going to take that. We'll go through another test campaign until Artemis IV, when astronauts are back on the moon.
You hope to have both for Artemis III. You only need one for Artemis IV. So what will determine which company you pick, assuming that both can present a viable solution?
Well, I hope we're in that situation where we have both landers that are ready to go, and we have high confidence in either one of them for Artemis IV, because what that tells me is we're just going to be pulling in the timelines for Artemis V. And you're going to see astronauts walk on the moon, and then they're going to come back home, and not too long later, you're going to see it again, which, again, that mirrors a lot of what we saw in the 1960s. You want to get in a rhythm. You want good muscle memory. It does not work out well for everybody to be launching these kind of rockets, to the moon in an extremely dangerous environment, measured in years. You want to be able to do it in months. So I certainly hope they're both ready for it. I will tell you with Artemis III how important it is for Orion to rendezvous and dock with both. So I'd say it's extremely unlikely we would ever launch that mission unless both were ready, so that we could achieve those important test objectives and bring down risk for Artemis IV when they land on the moon. But if they're both ready for our 2028 timeline, then that just tells me you're going to see an Artemis IV and Artemis V moon landing pretty quick.
But what if only one is ready? How long are you willing to wait for the other?
Well, I'd say that's why we're getting ahead of it right now. That's why you have dozens of NASA subject matter experts helping Blue Origin as they go through pad rebuild, the anomaly investigation, try and get them back in the business of launching the New Glenn rocket very quickly. But we have subject matter experts at Axiom right now helping them with the suits, and the same with SpaceX and across the entire supply chain. We are not waiting to get to that point to say, well, only one lander is available. We're going to drive both to meet our timelines.
Shift gears for a second. You laid out plans for an ambitious moon base. Help us visualize what that's going to be. I mean, what will it look like? What will go on there? How long will people spend there?
Sure. So when you think about the International Space Station right now, I mean, we've maintained this continuous human presence in microgravity for more than a quarter of a century. It's an absolute fantastic, laboratory for science and research. Tech demonstrations. We are going to test out the spacesuits that our astronauts on Artemis IV will wear on the moon in low Earth orbit. But the next natural evolution from microgravity and low Earth orbit is to go down to the surface of the moon, and that's where the astronauts will be able to interact with the lunar regolith. You could be 3D printing lunar regolith. You could be using our rovers, of which just a couple weeks ago we awarded 2 contracts. There'll be many more, to do surface improvements, building landing pads, covering habitats to protect them from meteorites and radiation. But this is the opportunity for the astronauts to work with the water ice. That's why we're going to the South Pole. Start mastering the skills of in-situ resource manufacturing for the next objective, which is when we send astronauts to Mars and we're able to bring them home safely. That's the importance of the moon base. Now, it is not going to come together in one magnificent glass dome. We're not doing the jump to the dream state anymore at NASA. We're, again, drawing on the playbook of the 60s. You're going to see lots of landers and rovers. I mean, literally starting in early 2027, on the Moonbase website, you're going to see landers, rovers, lots of science missions going on the moon as we execute what we call the science for survival and learn what does and doesn't work in the South Pole of the moon to inform the next phase where we start having semi-permanent habitation on the moon.
As you well know, China intends to land on the moon by 2030. How much does China's timetable influence NASA's, its push to get there, its timetable for all of this?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, NASA has been there before. We won the space race in the 1960s. We'll certainly win it again. I think competition is a great thing. I say it all the time. This is why we're able to kind of get all of our resources concentrated in the right direction. which is a big thing that we're doing right now at NASA, concentrating our resources on the needle-moving objectives in line with President Trump's national space policy. I would say we are making a lot of progress because of that competitive drive. You certainly don't want to lose those. So I'd say we are taking all the right steps in order to ensure that America can return to the moon, build the moon base, establish that enduring presence in advance of our geopolitical rival.
The big story this week is the IPO of SpaceX. What do you think about not only the company going public, but what does the IPO of SpaceX mean for the business of space?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I've been very passionate about the importance of having an orbital and perhaps even a lunar economy someday. Because I do think a lot of us have grown up imagining what a spacefaring world might look like, with lots of orbital space stations, a moon base, a Mars outpost, spaceships that can maybe someday take at least scientific payloads to another star system. I do not believe that can happen if it is entirely funded by taxpayers. Because rightfully, the debate always comes up, how can we invest so much in space when we have so many problems here on Earth? Now, the answer, of course, is we can do both. But when you have some of the most technologically advanced companies in the world putting their resources in, well in excess of taxpayer dollars, to create orbital data centers and AI data centers and mass drivers on the moon, that's the economy that we want in space that's going to ultimately result with more people living and working in space and maybe someday make us a multiplanetary species. So in that respect, I appreciate all of our partners and vendors that put their own capital to work and their resources for this better, brighter future. That really benefits all humankind. And I appreciate well-capitalized partners as well.
It's all part of living in the commercial era of space.
Well, people throw that out a lot. And I go back to the 1960s. I'm like, explain why that's different than when we partnered with Boeing or Northrop Grumman built the LEM. We had a lot of companies that helped us do the near impossible in the 1960s. Many of them are still helping us do it today. And yes, of course, you have new companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin and Rocket Lab, and they bring kind of a different flair to it. But they're coming together to do the near impossible for the good of the nation, for the economic potential and scientific potential of space, and again, honestly, for all humankind.